Hey there, welcome to Unit 4, Lesson 3, our last lesson for this week. Just a reminder, today is the last day of the quarter. So any work that you have from Units 1, 2, or 3 has to be submitted by midnight tonight, or it's going to go in as a 0 and hurt your grade. So make sure that you've got that done. Today, we are going to be talking about the growth of American power and influence during these early 1800s. Our agenda today is to go over these notes and fill in interactive notebook pages, and then you are going to do a pretty short ed puzzle on the Monroe Doctrine, and then a little cartoon analysis on the Monroe Doctrine as well, because it's really important that you understand why the Monroe Doctrine itself is important. So we've got two pages that we're going to be doing in the interactive notebook today. One of them here on the left is on the American system, and the other one is on the Monroe Doctrine and Marshall Court. We will not be doing the Marshall Court part of this page yet. We are only going to do the Monroe Doctrine part. Next week, we will pick up with that Marshall Court portion and go back and fill that in. So let's go ahead and get into these notes. If you needed to pause the video to pull up your interactive notebook while you're watching it, that's fine. But let's first start off by talking about the American system. Now, today our focus is really kind of like on the growth of American power plus the growth of American influence around the world. So one of the people that really pushed for what would be referred to as the American system to continue to get America to grow is a man by the name of Henry Clay. Henry Clay served as Speaker of the House of Representatives. So he was the leader of the House. He was a presidential candidate at one point. He was the leader of the Whig Party, which is kind of like the party that replaces the Federalist Party when it dies out. And then at one point, he's also Secretary of State. And while having these influential positions and being in the House of Representatives, he introduces something known as the American system. The American system has three separate components to it, and you're going to need to be familiar with all three of these. The first of which is a protective tariff. Now, we've talked about tariffs before. Tariffs are taxes that are placed on imports. So if something is coming from France into the United States, a tariff would put a tax on that item, which means that when American businesses would be selling those French items, the cost would go up and they would become more expensive because of that tax that had to be paid. The purpose of this is to protect American businesses. That's why it is called a protective tariff. So this puts a tax on those imports. And the hope is that maybe if you go to the store, you've got this item that's made from France, but you've also got this item that was made here in the United States. And now it's cheaper because it doesn't have that extra tax put on it. So you're more likely to buy the American made good, thus promoting and helping the American economy. The second portion of the American system is the creation of the second national bank. Now, remember, back in the last unit, we talked about how Hamilton and his economic plan basically said, let's create a national bank. But not everybody was on board with that. So the first national bank eventually goes away. This is going to propose and create another second national bank to establish regional financial offices to be able to help keep the country together and unified financially and help us to make sure that we really are maintaining one national currency that can be trusted by the people. And then lastly, we have internal improvements. We want to make sure during this time that we are doing everything to increase and help the United States to be able to grow. So we especially focus on improving our transportation system throughout the country. Henry Clay thought that we needed to build more roads and canals needed to be built as quick as possible, and that these roads and canals would thus make it easier to be able to do trade with other areas. That would help farmers, that would help merchants get their goods to the market, and everybody would be able to benefit from this. So he puts forward this plan. Here's the thing, not everybody is a fan of this plan. And so different groups or different regions have an actual opposition to this. Remember, he's a part of the Whig Party, and the Whig Party is going to be a little bit more on the side of like the government should be more involved in issues at this time. And so not everybody, especially the South and the West that are still filled with Democratic Republicans, which is the second part here. So I can just go ahead and open that up here. They're not going to be on board with this. The Southern individuals and people that were moving west, they didn't like these high tariffs because they felt like the high tariffs are going to hurt their interests. A lot of individuals, excuse me, said that this was going to unfairly favor northern manufacturers, and it's created to help them out, but it would actually hurt the South and the West, and it wouldn't be helpful for them and their endeavors in making money. Clay's counter argument to that, though, is that the South and the West should support the growth of the North, because the North is where they're going to provide a market for their cotton to be sold, and where they're going to provide a market for their other farm staples to be sold. This argument was weak, however, though, because Southern and Western planters also had relationships with other foreign markets for their cotton. It's not like they had to make the cotton down in the South and then send it to the North. They could directly send it over to France. Well, now, if France is upset about the fact that we've got these high tariffs coming in, they're going to do the same thing to us, which is going to possibly hurt the Southern and Western farmers. As I said, most of these individuals are also going to be Democratic Republicans. They tend to live in the South and the West. Many of them were farmers. Many of them opposed that Whig party that Clay was creating or leading, essentially. So that's a little bit of focus on like within the United States. Let's go a little bit outside of the United States now and talk about a very important thing known as the Monroe Doctrine. President Monroe is the president when this doctrine or this belief is put out, hence the reason why it's called the Monroe Doctrine. Even though he's not actually the one who comes up with it, you'll learn in your ed puzzle who actually does. So the point of the Monroe Doctrine is that after the United States wins the War of 1812, we believe that we are a more powerful nation, that we need to be taken more seriously, that we need to be respected more, and that we had a strong enough reputation and a strong enough military to stop Europeans from basically coming onto our side of the world. There was a series of like revolutions for independence that were taking place in Central and South America. And then as a result of this, those countries, we want to have them on our side. Like we want them to help us out, and we want to trade with them. And we want the Europeans and their colonizing practices to stay out. So basically the Monroe Doctrine is a policy telling the European nations that they needed to stay out. They needed to leave the Western Hemisphere alone. Leave North America, Central America, and South America alone. They can deal with stuff on their side of the world. This is our side of the world, and we will do this. We don't need you coming in and having all of these problems. So we also believed that this would be a good way for us to continue to build up our reputation as well and say, listen, just leave us alone. So right here, you can see where it says, keep your distance. Just leave us alone. You do your thing. We'll do our thing. And our thing is on this side of the world and includes all of the Americas. So you're going to learn more about that in your lesson. So let's go ahead and talk about what you're going to be doing for your assignment today. You have two assignments, the first of which is this ed puzzle. As I said, it is not very long. I think maybe 7-ish minutes, something like that. And then there is the Monroe Doctrine cartoon analysis. This is also pretty short. You have two cartoons that you are going to be analyzing. So you need to read this background information here. This is going to be very helpful. So make sure that you read that background information. I don't know why the first time I pull this up, the picture never shows up. So if that same thing happens to you, just refresh it. And then the picture always shows up the second time. Not sure why. So you're going to look at this political cartoon right here and answer these 4 questions. Make sure you answer all 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 on your paper or on your screen. And then you've got another political cartoon here and you've got 5 questions. Keep in mind that if you're looking at this and you're like, I can't really tell what that is, you can always zoom in by hitting the Control and plus button, and you can zoom right in on the picture if you need to do that. So with all of that being said, let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Get both of these assignments done. If you have any time to spare, then make sure that you go back and you work on anything that you possibly can that you might be missing from units 1, 2, and 3, because today is the last day of the quarter. I will see you guys next time, and yeah, get your stuff done. Good luck. Bye, y'all.